Okay, this video is titled Understanding Natalist Psychology. Um, I'm just gonna talk on this one. I don't have a script. Um, so, because I think I can get everything across that I want to say in a way that doesn't really require that kind of all that effort. So, um, yeah, natalist psychology, what is it? How do they think? All that kind of stuff. I'm going to be covering that. Now, first of all, as we all know, natalism is basically reproduction. Yes, it's basically what's championed in all societies, pretty much, um, with rare exceptions, very rare exceptions. But this is just how nature is. Okay, and so when you look at antinatalists, right, we are concerned with the nature of harm, with preventing harm, with just you know. Aiming to reduce the amount of suffering on this planet, all this kind of stuff, right? Um, so these people, right? They are the opposite, right? What are they about? They're more so about. So our objectives, if you are an antinatalist, is um, you know more so objective, altruistic values. Yes. Um, genuine care for your child, but I'm not saying that a lot of these people don't care about their children, but there's usually some level of ignorance there, and in the case of some of these people, they're just purely ignorant, um, or it's a case of misguidedness, which I guess is a similar thing. But another thing as well is usually when people have children, there's a lack of thought. Yeah. So I told you about that woman who I had to interact with. She's got 17 grandchildren in the West, in a Western country, right? She had 3 children herself, and those children, like her daughter, yeah, has got like twice as many children as she has, and they're having more. And I know someone else that's got like 11 children, and it's like that's too much, man. And especially when you look at like the area that I live in a big city. I'm not going to tell you guys where, but I mean it's incredibly overpopulated here. I mean I've already talked about this, but streets are packed, trains are packed, buses, everything is fucking packed. Streets, stores, anything, you name it. All right, everything outside of your personal house, but even then that might be packed. So um, it's just insane to me that people are still thinking about having children. Um, especially if you live in the big city, right? Now, what kind of I want to go back to natalist psychology. So number one is indifference. Yes, they're usually indifferent about their child. They're usually pro the system. So they're usually very pro education, very pro society, very pro things like religion, family, things like this. Um, they're usually just um, I don't know what you could call them. I guess you could say like um, average people or something. But even then, that it's not really an average person. These are people that they're also selfish. That's what I was trying to get across. Like they're selfish. I mean, when you ask them, right? What was your motivation to have children? It's usually some silly stuff like, oh, to continue my bloodline, or to have someone to care for me when I'm old, or for my own personal happiness, which is misguided. But um, first and foremost, let's analyze this. Yeah, these are um, these are people of this world. They are usually worldly people for those reasons. Continuing your bloodline, having another human being that you bring into existence for your own enjoyment, someone to use and abuse in a way, or to like kind of be a mini ruler over. They all deny this. All these parents, they all deny that, but you know how they are. Um, and it's just the nature of being a parent comes with kind of ruling over your children in a tyrannical way. I mean, the nature of a mother and father is like kind of an overlord over the child, right? Um, when you think about it. I mean, it can't be another way, which is a problem. Um, so, I mean, really, when you look at it, right, when you put all these factors together, right, this worldliness, like this, anyone who, by the way, anyone who puts continuing their bloodline as the reason for having children, I mean, I mean, come on, man, that's not acceptable. You need to have an actual reason to impose the risk, right? And these natalists, these breeders or whatever, they don't care, right? So, I mean, when you put all this together, you get quite an ugly picture. And then when you compare, like, another thing that they'll give is a source of happiness. So the reason why it's a source of happiness, they might get genuine enjoyment from having like a son or a daughter or some kind of lineage. There's a difference between a legacy and a lineage. A legacy is something that you do out of your own efforts for humanity or for something, right? A lineage is just you fucking and having sex, unprotected, basically. Um, and you're not contributing anything really. You're just contributing another wage slave to the system. Um, so when you combine all of this ignorance, of course not in all cases, but in the vast majority of cases, this ignorance, this indifference towards the child, this kind of selfishness, this me mentality, um, this inconsiderateness about the actual state of the world that you're bringing the child into. I mean, I talked about this on my AI and antinatalism video. I'm not sure if it will be out by the time I'm actually speaking about this, but it should be. But all of these factors, when you put them together, you get a very ugly picture. And another thing, when you look at the source of these people's happiness, it's in worldly things, it's in other people, it's in social structures, constructs like the family and marriage and things like religion, right? It's not in anything objective like philosophy or what else? Philosophy or art or creativity or self-expression or anything like this, usually. Now, I mean, I've kind of painted a picture of these people as being conservative, not all the time, conservatively minded. I'm not saying politically, although that's definitely a factor as well. But usually the people that are having children nowadays are like these kinds of people. Also people that have children for like, I guess you could say ethnic reasons, so to continue a particular group of people or whatever, which I understand it, but I mean still that's in a way it's more understandable than something like continuing the bloodline for your selfish sake, but it's still not, I mean, it's still, when it comes to like the ultimate, when it comes to an antinatalist perspective, it's still misguided, okay? But it's more understandable, but it's still not a reason to have children. I mean, when you look at, just when you look at the level of risk that you're imposing certain death on your child. And I find it often with like these natalists, they don't even consider this. So they're creating a child, and they don't look at it, and they just see a baby. They just see a cute baby. They just see sunshines and rainbows. They just see the most optimistic view possible. When really, I mean, that child, I mean, you're playing, I mean, as David Benatar said, you're playing Russian roulette with a fully loaded pistol to the child's head, right? And it's like, there's no consideration of that risk, and it's not even a risk you can get out of. It's 100% sure that you will lose this bet or this game that you're playing. It's not even that you're playing; you're imposing it on another. It's imposition. However, there's a concept I want to talk about in relation to this, but I'm not going to, because this is a video just about breeder or natalist psychology. Now, I've got some other points that I want to talk about, but those are the main points. Yes. However, when it actually comes to, caring for the child and all this, right? They might care for them, they might love the child, but I would say true love for your child is just not to create them, and especially when you're like, because I would consider enlightenment just the negation of birth. However, There's a theoretical problem that when it comes to that. I'm not going to talk about it here. However, practically, if you're enlightened, you don't have children. I mean, when you look at it, right? Buddhists, monks, Christian monks, Buddhist monks, pretty much anyone who understands this world does not have children, and that should tell you something, shouldn't it? That once you reach a certain level of awareness, you don't reproduce, and reproduction is more so like an animalistic thing, right? And these reasons that I mentioned, that a lot of these breeders have, I mean, they're or natalists or whatever you want to call them. I don't want to use derogatory language. Is animalistic. It's purely based on instincts. I mean, usually it's just having sex unprotected for extra pleasure, and that leads to children, right? Or there's some kind of other reason. Oh, I can't use contraception in my religion or something like this, and it's just like, well, I mean, find another solution. I mean, some of these people just have so many children. It's insane. I mean, I can understand like maybe 1, 2, 3, even 4 children, although that's going a little bit excessive in the modern day. But to have like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 children is insane, and it's very common, like among like immigrant communities. And it's not even about immigrants. It's like, certain ethnic groups in the UK, and this is around the West in general, and it's like, there's no consideration for the actual environment around you. Even if you're like an environmentalist or something, to bring a child into an overpopulated city that is, just doesn't have resources, and even when you look at things like AI, right, you don't know if your child's going to have a job. Even just looking at the job market, right, even without AI, I mean, you can't do that to your child. Just bring them into this job market, man. And this education system, which is a complete disgrace. I'll get onto that later. But it's like there's no consideration from that perspective as well. Now I want to get onto some personal experiences that I've experienced, and then I'm going to end the video. Now, I told you about that woman who asked me, "Oh, when are you going to have children?" And she's got like 17 grandchildren. Yes, and I've told you she's got like 6 grandchildren from one side and like 7 from the other. Or I wasn't thinking there. Let's do the math. So 12 on the other. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so she's got 6 plus 6, I'm pretty sure, and then 5, right? Because she's got 3 children. I'm not too sure about the third one. That's why I hesitated there. But, I mean, it's just, that's too much, right? It's too much in the modern day. And the problem with these people is that another thing with like these natalists and stuff, they don't have a conception of, like, they don't have their own life. It's all for other people, right? I mean, when you look at it, right, they're just having children, most of them anyway, having sex, not thinking, not using critical thinking in any aspect, right? It's not even about antinatalism, it's just in any aspect. I mean, just to bring a child into this world nowadays is just, I mean, you've got to be very ignorant to do that, in my opinion, right? I mean, even if you had children like maybe 10, 20 years ago, even 5 years ago, it's kind of different to having them today, right? But these people, they just don't stop. And I had another experience with another guy, a religious guy, and he was saying things like, "Oh, the Earth can easily house 400 billion people." I mean, I'm sorry, I don't know what you're smoking to believe that, what bullshit you're watching online to believe that. We can barely house 8 billion people on this planet as it is. So I would say this, I would literally debunk his arguments. I would say, look, most people want to live in big cities. We don't have the infrastructure level. People want a certain level of living, etc., etc. And I said, the world is not designed for that and everything, and those kind of arguments along those lines. And he would just respond, like literally copy and paste from the internet, and respond to me like that. And I was just like, come on, man, you can do better than that. And I would literally go back and forth with him. Very high level antinatalist arguments I was using. And not even antinatalist arguments, but bringing up the state of the world and everything. And no matter what I would say, he just would not listen at all. And then I remember like the last conversation we had, he like despite everything I said to him, not even regarding antinatalism, just about the state of the world. I mean, I shared to him a fact that 2/3 of the world live in like below Western, not even Western poverty levels, but um, uh, like a certain part of the world's poverty levels, like the poorest parts of Europe. Yeah, um, and he would just say, like he would listen to that, and it just would nothing would click in his mind, right? And I know we live in the UK, but still, I mean, it like no matter what I would tell him, he just wouldn't understand that this world was a terrible place, right? That it was a place full of suffering and misery. No matter what I would say to him, forget antinatalism, just accept that this is a world of suffering. Nah, we're not going to do that. And it's frustrating, It's like, what's the point in me talking to you if this is, and then afterwards, right, the last thing he said to me was, oh, when I have children, right? So it's like a when. It's never if, right? It's never a consideration of someone else's opinion, right? And it's like, it's just insulting because you spend all this time with someone, right? Forget this antinatalism stuff for a minute. You spend all this time with someone trying to convince them of something and they don't fucking listen. So it's like, what's the point in me communicating with you, going back and forth with you for years, by the way? I did this for years. And you just ignore it. It's like, it doesn't matter to you. What's the point of that interaction? But yeah, I'm just going to leave it here, guys. Thanks for listening if you have until now. And yeah, see you in the next one. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, and peace.